Jordan? All right, we're good. All right, so our skill builder today is the basics of church safety and security. All right, we're going to talk about some principles and practices for church safety. Our speaker is Eric Hightower. Eric is a friend of mine for many, many years now. He's also actually in terms of tenure, one of the senior pastors in our association. He's been pastoring First Baptist Church of Fair Oaks Ranch. It hasn't always been called that, but everything that it's been called, he's pastored there. They've changed the name, but he's still been the pastor. He's been there for 21 years as a bivocational pastor. He's also served for 31 years on the force of the San Antonio Police Department. He holds the rank of captain and has been involved in various types of law enforcement work over the years. I don't have time now, but if you ask me later on, I'll tell you about a funny Friday night that Susan and I spent with Eric and his wife one time while he was training a dignitary security team, and they thought we were important. Boy, were they wrong. It was a fun time. But anyway, what I asked Eric to do today is put both of his hats on, his pastor hat as well as his law enforcement hat, and talk to us about some of the basic things that any church of any size needs to be thinking through and practicing in order to make sure that you have plans for emergencies, for various safety issues that the church may have to deal with. Eric and his wife, Christy, by the way, Christy is also the music ministry director for their church. And in their spare time, they raised 7 children, of which 2 of them are here with us today. Eric, why don't you introduce who you have with you today?
This is 2 of my middle kids, Joel and Isaiah.
Joel and Isaiah. Sure glad you guys are here today.
Yeah.
Now get this. For family fun, they like to hit the road and take RV trips, the whole crew of them. I just hope it's a really big RV. When Eric and I were talking about this, he said, now you realize this is a 40-hour course that you want me to condense into 40 minutes. And I said, yes, I do realize that. Obviously, we're not going to exhaust this subject today. But I told him, so just tell us the most important things that church leaders need to know, that church leadership teams need to be thinking about, and things that would be applicable to any congregation of any size. So obviously, context and size are going to have some impact on church safety procedures, but just kind of hit the main things that would be applicable to any congregation of any size. And so let's give a warm welcome to our brother and fellow pastor, Eric Hightower.
Are we on here, Jordan? Okay, good to go. Talking from a lapel mic, so I'm going to do my best to stand before this so you can hear me. And I also am used to preaching for a full hour every Sunday. And when Robbie told me I only have 5 minutes, I only warmed up until I hit the 40-minute mark. So I'm going to do my best. And there's no clock in here, so that really is dangerous, extra dangerous for you. So I'll keep hitting my phone here and make sure I do my best. I'm told that you get up and leave at 1 o'clock regardless if I'm finished. So I'll do my best to finish by 1 o'clock. All right. And I'm going to word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with these men and women and to speak about this important topic of safety and security for our churches and our congregations, of how we're called to be shepherds, both in the spiritual but also in the physical, to protect those you put under our charge in the physical realm too, and from the dangers that exist in our world. We ask that you bless our time and give us insight to the things that we potentially need to do in our church to make them as safe as possible. And we ask that we glorify you in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So, as Robbie already mentioned, this is my crew, my security detail right here, and been married to my wife for 21 years. We actually, I was the first pastor, not the founding pastor of First Baptist Church, but I'm the first pastor when we became autonomous and independent. We were a DBA plant when JK was running the ship, and Robbie took over very shortly after that. And been there since its inception back in 2005. Actually became the pastor of the church before I got married. So we got married shortly thereafter in June, July 1 of that year. And since then, we've had the opportunity to adopt 7 children. We're actually about to adopt our 7th. Was kind of a surprise. She's the youngest in this picture, our 3-year-old, and we adopt her in March. And just blessed beyond belief to have these 7 wonderful kids in our family. And my 2 superstars over here cheering me on today.
All right.
So this is me normally. And I've been with the police department for, as mentioned, 31 years. I've served in countless roles. I don't have time to go through my entire resume, but started out as a police officer, worked there for 10 years, did several different jobs, community service, patrol, security detail, or things of that nature. Spent 5 years as a homicide detective, 5 years as a special operations sergeant, 4 years as a special operations and patrol lieutenant, and then the last 7, I've been there as a captain serving in multiple different capacities. My current assignment is actually I work directly for the chief in what is called strategic planning and technology. When he assigned me this, it was about a year ago. He assigned me that job, and I said, "Chief, I am not the right person for your technology department. I don't even have a Facebook page." And he's like, "No, you are the right person. You can run projects and management and stuff like that well. So I want you here." So I work directly for him in strategic planning and project management and technology, all the technology. So why are we here today? To talk about security. Why do I need a security plan? And I don't know the demographics of all of your churches, and perhaps some of your churches are relatively rural and maybe small. Some of them, like this church, relatively larger in size and more urban. Fair Oaks Ranch, we're still a very rural church. We've been there for a little over 20 years now, and we are still considered rural. We're just now beginning to experience some of the city growth of San Antonio moving north towards us. We're still considered pretty rural. We have an average attendance on the weekends of about 125, and that's been our norm for the better part of the last 10 plus years. As the church has kind of gotten established and grown, that's where we are. And so you may be sitting in that same place and thinking to yourself, "Why do I really need a security plan? What is the purpose of a security plan for us?" Just maybe a quick survey of who actually in your churches who has a what do you call it, safety or security plan in place, not just a team, but a plan. You have a written documented plan. There's not many. I was thinking that I did a lot more hands up. Okay. So, yeah, well, I'm kind of like the mechanic. All right. So a mechanic fixes everybody else's car, but they don't have a car that works for themselves. And so don't be embarrassed by that. We just got our security plan in place about a year ago. So don't panic that you don't have one. However, I would suggest that you might want to consider some of the things I'm telling you today, because without a security plan, you're ultimately opening yourself, your church, up to liability and legal issues. I think some of the reason we think maybe I don't need a security plan is because, nothing bad's going to happen here. We're rural. We're not an urban church. We're not in a place where there's going to be a lot of security risks. We know everybody that comes here. And so maybe that's your thought process when it comes to security plans. I don't need one because of that. You don't want to seem unwelcoming. And the thought of a security plan means that, people are going to come in and they're going to see security and they're going to feel unwelcome or it's going to feel restrictive. And so maybe you don't want a security plan for that reason. You don't want the trouble, the time it takes to put one together, or you feel like it's going to cost too much money. And, our budgets are already pretty tight as it is. So adding one more thing, especially like a security team, that's really going to stretch the budget. It's not something we can do. Too many legal complications with, maybe you're of the mindset that we're in Texas. And in Texas, everybody's got a gun, so it's going to solve itself. It's going to work its way out. And you don't really need a security plan. Anybody that's there will take care of the problem. And there is maybe some truth to that, but we still need to have that organized. We still open ourselves up to a lot of legal issues if we don't coordinate how our congregation is going to respond to that issue. Maybe you have the spiritual approach. You know what? We're going to just trust God. God's going to sort it out. God's going to protect us. But I'd remind you that, as I prayed just a minute ago, we're shepherds of the spiritual realm, but we're also shepherds in the physical realm too. So our job is to protect the flock in any way that we can, and this certainly applies to that. So, cost benefits. Let's talk about this. Maybe I can at least encourage you to get a security plan in place. 5 reasons I'll give you very quickly. Number 1, it protects people, it protects property, it helps mitigate harm in many different ways. It protects your people. It is the first step to solving a problem before it even begins. It reduces the likelihood of the event taking place to begin with. When you show up to a location, like a venue, a concert venue or something like that, and they have good crowd control, good crowd management. They have very well defined, whether it be security or ushers or any sort of staff, it automatically reduces the likelihood that somebody's going to attempt something at this event or venue. And the same is true for your congregation. If you have a clearly established flow of traffic, if you have a clearly established individuals that are ushers or greeters or staff or things like that, then it's going to immediately begin to reduce the likelihood of an event taking place at your location. It reduces legal and liability exposures. I'm going to talk a little more about that in a little bit, so I'm just going to pass over that real fast. It creates a coordinated response to those critical incidents, but also to the more common, just simply unusual incidents, and it helps you restore order more quickly. And the more unusual occurrence incidents are like the slip and falls, the diabetic coma, the heart attack, the medical issues that take place, the family disturbance that suddenly breaks out, the person that stands up and has a question about what you're preaching on. All those things would be unusual. They're not normal to your everyday service, but they are things that you need to be prepared for and how to resolve them. So having a safety plan in place allows you to resolve them in a very orderly way and in a very expedited way, so you can get back to the business of the church service that you've got going on that day. So it helps you to do that. It enhances member confidence and hospitality and all. When your members know that you've got a plan in place, they then don't start coming up with their own plan. So it enhances their own confidence that this is under control. I know somebody's in charge of it and somebody's taking care of it, and they will allow that to unfold when the need arises. If you have no plan in place, that means everybody has their own, and it's going to result in everybody doing their own thing. And that ultimately is going to create nothing but chaos. But this also increases your hospitality. Perhaps one of the concerns about having a security team is, we look stifling. This actually helps increase that because it gives everyone a task, an assignment, a responsibility, and they know part of that, especially from the safety team's perspective, part of the responsibility is to try to identify who that new person is every single Sunday and identifying them and greeting them, getting to know them and escorting them to their seat or helping them find a seat or helping them know where they're supposed to go and where to drop off children and things of this nature. It actually increases your hospitality. It doesn't reduce that hospitality. And then ultimately it improves stewardship of limited resources. And what I mean by that is always, 100% of the time, it is always cheaper to prepare than it is to repair. Think of the ice storm that just went through in the last couple of weeks. If you did not cover your pipes because you did not want to prepare for the storm and then they cracked, the cost to repair them is way more. And the same thing is true for security related issues. If an event were to happen at your church, the cost to repair the trust, the cost to repair lives that may be broken or shattered, the cost of lawsuits is way higher than any cost you will ever spend in the preparation phase of a safety or security team. Some quick stats for you. Maybe I can convince you with one more thing. Stats about church events. And this is just over the last 25 years. And this is just here in the United States. This does not account for two different things. It does not account for anti-Semitic attacks since October 7th. And this does not count all of the ICE protests that are currently occurring in like Minneapolis and places like that. So this is completely apart from that. This is dealing specifically with active shooter attacks, which is what we often think when we need a safety or security plan. This is dealing just with active shooter attacks. This is not dealing with the thousands, I'll argue even tens of thousands of actual events that occur in a church in any given Sunday that are the family disturbance or the medical emergency or the missing child that we should also have a security plan for. This is just those types of issues that we most commonly think about because they make the evening news. So in the past 25 years, there have been 417 intentional incidents involving the active killing of an individual. And I'm careful to not say an active shooter, because not all of them are shooters. Some of them could be with a knife or some other type of weapon of being able to commit death or destruction. So they're active attacks is what they are. 417 of them. In the last 25 years, that means more than one a month. That means about 1.5 a month are happening somewhere in the United States. In that time frame, 533 deaths, 193 injuries have occurred. Now, in Texas, some of the more ones we're familiar with, perhaps. Going back just a little bit before 2000, September of 1999, Fort Worth. There was a youth event that occurred in Fort Worth. 7 active shooter event, 7 were killed, 7 were injured. In November of 2017, Sutherland Springs, a gunman enters the church service. Now, this was related to a domestic violence issue. And they should have had a plan in place to deal with the domestic violence issue, and then hopefully it would not have led to the ultimate attack at the Sutherland Springs church. But the Sutherland Springs, 26 killed, another 20 were wounded. This still remains to this day, almost 10 years later. Thankfully, I suppose we could put it that way, the deadliest church attack in U.S. history. December 2019, West Freeway Church in White Settlement, that's near Fort Worth. And this group, they had kind of been watching the trends, and so they had a unpaid volunteer security team in place. A shooter enters their congregation, kills 2 individuals, and within 6 seconds of the first shot going out, the security team responded and killed that attacker, and saved who knows how many people in the aftermath. So that was the result of a good plan in place that was implemented well. And then one that it made the news, but it only made the news very, very briefly because of the success of it. And this was actually Joel Osteen's church in Houston. You'd expect them to have a pretty good security team, being as large as they are and being as publicized as they are. But a woman, a mentally looking for handicapped, I suppose, mentally disturbed woman, enters the congregation. She begins to shoot people. Their paid and uniformed security team responds immediately, and they kill her, and she only wounds 2 people in the process. So you can see that over time, we're kind of learning lessons along the way, and we're getting better. But that still can lead to a lot of legal problems if we don't plan for some of these things, if we're not learning our lessons along the way. So legal implications, to plan or not to plan, to have something solidified and in place and something that is written down and documented and that we actually abide by versus doing nothing, which is the better option, which is going to result in less lawsuits. Well, here's the reality. Sutherland Springs and Fort Worth, both churches were sued. Thankfully, both churches were found not liable. One did not have a plan. Sutherland Springs had no plan whatsoever. But the courts deemed that it was not necessarily necessary or reasonable for them to assume that this would happen. Where the White Settlement Church in Fort Worth, they were also sued for wrongful death and all the other things you'd expect, but they were also found not liable. Why? Because they had a plan in place. They actually acted upon the plan they had in place, and the state of Texas has now implemented laws that limit, almost remove entirely, liability for churches that implement good security plans. So some things to think about. The courts ultimately look at it in this way, whether you have a plan or not. If you don't have a plan, they're going to say, should you? Should you have known better? Should you have had a plan in place, and just for lack of interest, you decided not to? And in our day and age, they're going to probably, or more than likely, discover, yes, you should have had a plan in place. It's unreasonable in our day and age to assume that something is not going to happen at your church facility at some point. So not having a plan in place is not a bury my head in the sand, solve all to legal ramifications. Good chance you could probably be sued and found liable without any plan at all. The second side of that, the court says, okay, if you have a plan, is it a reasonable plan? Doesn't have to be a perfect plan. Is it just simply a reasonable plan for the most likely types of events or occurrences that will happen at your facility? Do you have it written down? Do you actually train on it? And those are the things they're going to be looking at, because simply having a plan in a folder somewhere that actually has never been looked at and no one knows what it says or what is written in it is like having no plan. In fact, it's actually worse, because you have a plan that you never implemented. it's worse than having no plan. You'd be better off just burying your head in the sand.
That's a question.
Yeah.
Has there been an example of a church that was sued successfully, but they lost? Any court were found liable?
I did not do that research, but I would assume yes. Yeah, I would assume. And I don't know, what the financial obligations would be. Does it bankrupt the church as well? I went with trying to find the examples of having a plan, not having a plan, and being hopefully where we all will be is non-liable. That's what we're looking for. Courts ultimately are going to ask 5 questions. Number 1 is, do you have a duty of care? That's the first question they'll ask. What's your duty of care? And in our day and age, we all have the duty of care for mass gatherings. And even if it's just 100 people, which is the average size church in America today, that's still a mass gathering, and we have a duty of care. Foreseeability is the second question they're going to ask, which means, did you have anything that would lead you to believe this was necessary and needed? Okay. So if we are way out in Abilene, Texas, in the middle of rural nowhere, and the most common thing you see out there is tumbleweeds, we could probably get away with not necessary. There's no reason to foreseeably assume someone is going to show up at our church on a Sunday morning and suddenly just start shooting everyone. In the middle of San Antonio, New Braunfels, San Marcos, in large urban areas, it is definitely a foreseeable issue. It's something we should take into consideration. The third is reasonableness of measurement. So when we're thinking about putting together a plan, it doesn't mean that we have to have every scenario played out, orchestrated, and this perfectly organized security plan in place. It just means, have we sat down and thought about it in a reasonable manner and come up with good ideas of how we would solve this problem for our facility? One of the reasons I'm not giving you implement X, Y, and Z here today is because I don't go to your church. And you need to come up with a plan that works at your church, not what works at my church, with your team of volunteers, not my team of volunteers. So hopefully you can understand it has to work for you, and that's part of that reasonableness. Documented training is the fourth thing the courts are going to look at. Did you actually have a plan? Was it written down? Did you do some type of training on a consistent basis? So not once every 3 years, more like once every 6 months is what they're going to be looking at. At least an annual training of the plan. Did you document who was there at the training and what was covered during the training? Did you keep that roster? That's what they're going to look at. And if you have done those things, they're going to say, you know what, this was a pretty organized and pretty reasonable, provided, the plan wasn't something, off the wall and crazy, just shoot everybody and let God sort it out. No, that's not the plan we want. Assuming that's not the case, you have a good, reasonable plan, taking your skill sets in mind, then the courts are going to find you not liable. And then number 5 is response time and communication. So what this applies to is, now an event has occurred on your facility. It's occurred at your property. How do you communicate to your congregation what to do? As the pastor, do you get on your microphone and say, okay, everybody, we have a security event right now. We need to lock down. And does your congregation know what that means? To then lock down, maybe they run out and lock their car. What does lockdown mean to them? So have you communicated in the actual event of an emergency? Have you been able to communicate to them what to do? Shelter in place, stay put, evacuate the building, find your children here, go here, all those things. And let's say you lose power in the midst of this emergency situation. They're not all security related. Say you lose power because a tornado is going through. How do you communicate with everybody? Who's responsible for that? So that's part of your safety plan as well, of how did you plan to communicate with everyone in your buildings to keep them safe in the process? More legal considerations. Legal considerations. Do I have uniform, non-uniform? What should it look like? I'm going to give you a couple of laws, and I've given you a handout to help with this a little bit, but these are extras, so you want to write these down on your little notepad. These may help you as well. A volunteer security team are exempt from private security licensing. I'll say it again because it's important. I think one of the reasons we don't have a security plan in place for a security team is because we're not going to go get licensed with a state that costs too much money. You're absolutely right, it does. But starting in 2023, the state of Texas passed some laws that now exempt churches from having to have a private security license for your facility if all of your security and safety team are volunteer and unpaid. That is the key. Volunteer and unpaid. It is, yes, sir.
But you said if all of your security team. So what if there's one off-duty policeman?
Ah.
The rest is.
That's the exemption. I'll get to that in just a second.
Yes.
You're one step ahead.
Sure.
This is Texas Occupational Code. You want to look it up. Texas Occupational Code 1702.333. 1702.333. Now, they must be unpaid. They must be volunteers. The only compensation you can give them is free barbecue at the training cycle. That's it. Once you pay them, now you've entered into, this is a professional doing a professional job, and they have to be licensed. So it is important you understand they must be unpaid and they must volunteer for that assignment. Secondly, they cannot represent themselves as security, as law enforcement, or anything in that ballpark. Okay? So I've got two pictures up here for you. One says security on it and one says volunteers on it. If your church has paid security and you have a private security license, then I recommend you use the visible security for those people, because that visible deterrence, an officer shows up in uniform, that's the first level of force, because the uniform itself implies I have the right and the authority to tell you what to do. If you do not have any paid licensed security, then I recommend you use anything except security in their title. Usher, greeter, staff, volunteer, anything else except security, because you do not want to imply that these individuals have some level of authority in that realm of security.
Eric, some churches use the word safety. Is that,
yes,
is that okay?
it is, absolutely. And that's what we use. We use a safety team. We try to be very careful about using that word security team. This is our safety team, because our goal is to keep everyone safe.
What about small churches? So how do we label that for our security team?
In the exact same way, with usher, greeter, volunteer, host, everyone else that goes there all the time and knows who they are and what they're doing. It's the individual that may have some type of nefarious activity in mind that comes and does something. You want them to be able to respond, but at the same time, you don't want to imply security. So safety team, you could even, we get those little badges sometimes we wear, and safety team, you could put safety team on it, things of that nature. But you would not want to imply any level of security. Again, this is if they're volunteer and unpaid. Okay. The exception, as the gentleman mentioned in the back, the only exception to this rule is if they are current, not former, not retired, but current commissioned law enforcement officers that hold a TCOL commission with the state of Texas. That was a huge mouthful. What that simply means is they're getting paid by somebody to wear a uniform on a daily basis. That's what it means. Okay. Constable, sheriff, law enforcement, police department, independent school district, hospital district, even the railroad has police officers. It doesn't matter who's paying their paycheck, as long as they are certified law enforcement officers with TCOL commissions, they are exempt from this. So they can wear a uniform, they can be in plain clothes, they can be paid by the church as an extra job, they can be volunteer. They are completely exempt, and they exempt the church from the private security license, provided they're the only ones you are using as a quote unquote security, safety, law enforcement officer. So hopefully that makes that clear. Because I know many of our churches, ironically, I'm the only law enforcement officer in my church. I have a couple of retired guys that are there. I'm the only current certified law enforcement officer. I'm the only one that does not carry a gun on Sunday morning. The entire church carries a gun except me, and I'm the only one that's actually a police officer. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm curious. Just so I'm clear, you say those who are commissioned officers paid somewhere else, they can be in uniform and serve on the security or safety team here. Is that a long? mix of volunteers?
Yes. 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 They can serve in a blended capacity. Absolutely.
And uniform paid from somebody else. We're still underneath.
Correct. Yes. And to add just a little energy to that, their uniform or plain clothes is usually dictated by their department, not by the church. You may want them in plain clothes and their department requires them in uniform. And vice versa. You may want them in uniform and the department's like, no, we don't want to be involved in that. It's okay if you go and you volunteer your time, but we don't want anything to do with that. And so they will show up and they'll be in plain clothes and they can still serve on your team. They can still represent themselves as law enforcement. They can still make arrests appropriate to their jurisdiction and to their authority. But they may be plain clothes. So it all depends kind of on their department's level of participation. Yes.
But you said they can be a part of the team, but still, if you use a security guard, you have one security guard or a couple of security guards that are or LEOs and stuff. I mean, current LEOs. But if it's any mix of, it couldn't be a mix of them plus volunteers.
It can be minutes. Oh, it can be. Oh, yes. If they are TCOL certified LEOs, they are exempt. So remove them from the equation and then everything else applies.
Okay.
Makes sense. And by the way, the occupation code on that one is 1702.02. So it's different than the 1702.333. For law enforcement, it's different, 1702.02, if you want to look that up. I love the question, but I'm not going to get through all these slides. So if y'all get up and leave at 1, then sorry. If you stay longer, I'm willing to talk as long as you sit. Robbie, don't hold it against me. All right. So what about firearms, right? Firearms is a big deal. We're in Texas. Everybody's got a gun. Do we want them? Do we not want them? So firearms requirements for your unpaid and volunteer staff. As long as they meet the eligibility requirements to have a firearm, then they can have a firearm. They can have it concealed or they can have it open. Now, let me talk through what some of those rules are. No felony convictions, no domestic violence, and no protective orders against them are the primary ones. They must be over 21. So those are the 4 biggies of can I have a firearm in Texas or not? I mean, a handgun, precisely. Then comes the question of concealed or not concealed. In Texas, you don't need a CHL anymore. It's a permitless state. You can carry a gun if you're over 21 and you meet those other eligibility requirements. Anybody can carry a gun in Texas. If you want to carry it open, meaning that everybody can see that firearm, then it has to be in a holster. That's the only requirement. It has to be in a holster. You can't just carry it around in your hand all the time. It has to be secured in a holster. Concealed, it just has to be secure. That means I can carry it in a bag, I can carry it in a briefcase, a purse, guys, wherever we are on that, I'm not sure. You can carry it in something that is secure. Now, where does the church stand? The church, it's an all or nothing, okay? You cannot restrict any of your LEOs from carrying, okay? They are exempt from all restricted carry anywhere in the state of Texas. So if you're a certified LEO, you can go anywhere you want to with that firearm and no one can stop you from doing it. However, all of your non-LEOs that are at your church, if you restrict one, you restrict all. If you allow one, you allow all. So the question is, do you want open carry? Do you want concealed carry only? Or do you want nothing? If you want to restrict, for example, you want your safety team to be allowed to carry a firearm, if they have them, and if they've done their own training, and you don't want to restrict that. So don't post the signs that say, no firearms allowed. 30.06 is the concealed carry. But if you don't want anybody just wearing a firearm on their hip, we're not going Western here, and we don't want everybody just carrying a firearm on their hip open for everybody to see, you can restrict just that. And you have to have your signs posted 30.07 that says no open carry allowed. But when you do that, you are also restricting your safety team from it as well. You're not just restricting strangers, you're restricting everyone. And same thing is true for concealed carry. If you say, I don't want anybody concealed carry, then you're telling your safety team likewise, you can't do it either. It's an all or nothing for those restrictions, except the one exception, law enforcement officers. Okay. So use of force. Can they use it? How should they use it? When you put on that well-documented training, one of the things you need to incorporate, go online, print it out, and read, have everybody sign Chapter 9 of the Penal Code. Chapter 9 of the Penal Code. That is what deals with use of force. And that is not just for police officers. That is for anyone and everyone. When are you allowed to defend yourself? When are you allowed to defend a third party? When are you allowed to use deadly force to do it? So your security or safety team needs to be familiar with those rules of engagement. You cannot exempt them from following those rules. So if you tell your safety and security team and you're like, anybody stands up to challenge what I have to say, I want you to tackle them, beat them up, and throw them out. You have opened them up to criminal liability and the church up to civil liability, because Chapter 9 does not give you the ability to circumvent it. Now, they charge the stage and try to injure you, or they, get into a fight with somebody else. That changes things. So be familiar with Chapter 9 of the Penal Code, self-defense and use of force. And that is what would apply to all of your unpaid volunteer security team. Any LEOs you have on your team, they're going to have to follow their department policy, which probably restricts types of use of force even greater than what Chapter 9 of the Penal Code does. Okay? I know this is a lot of legal stuff, but man, this is what's going to get us every time, right? So, legal concerns. Civil immunity. Here's the law that you may want to know about. Senate Bill 694. Senate Bill 694 enacted September 1st, 2023. It allows civil immunity. That's a huge word. Civil immunity to religious organizations and their security personnel. So it extends to your volunteer security staff. Anyone, when they are acting within the scope of the assigned safety or security duties. That is huge, because you may have people that are willing to help out in your church, but they're like, man, I can't afford that. I can't afford to get sued if I do something. So I'm just going to make sure I protect my family should an event unfold. This grants you, the church, civil immunity that transfers to that volunteer unpaid security team, provided they meet these 5 criteria. Number 1, you're obviously a nonprofit church, 501c3. Number 2, they are designated for that safety security team. They're volunteers. They're not being paid unless you have the private security license. And then they also are granted that immunity. Number 3, they are acting within the scope of that safety or security detail. Whatever it is that you told them to do, that's what they're doing. So you didn't tell them to tackle the protester, beat them up and throw them out. They did it on their own. They lost that immunity because your policy said, let me handle that. I don't want you beating up anybody and throwing them out. Okay. So they must follow the policy. Number 4, documented. Here's the huge one. Documented training. Documented training. Without documented training, just simply having a plan, stuff in a file folder somewhere that is never brought out, you have by de facto removed your immunity. Have a plan, train on it, document who is there and what was covered, and you have enacted that immunity. So if you do not have any documentation, that's not going to fly. You are subjecting your church to that liability and the team that is there as well. And then number 5 is immunity does not apply to criminal acts or misconduct. See what I just said about Chapter 9 of the Penal Code. Civil liability considerations. Negligent hiring, negligent supervision, and improper or zero training. So that's what they will find, that no, that immunity no longer applies. You did not hire right, you did not supervise right, you did not train right, and you know what? We're not going to give you that immunity.
What was the number of that Senate bill?
Senate Bill 694. Senate Bill 694. How do we get started? And I'm pushing through this fast. I don't know if you've done it in quite 10 minutes, but I'm going to push very quickly here. How do we get started? That first step's always the hardest, right? 5 things. Find a leader. Find a team leader, and then start building a team. That leader should not be you. Okay. I was hoping to get an amen on that from the pastors in here, but that leader should not be you.
When you say not you, you're referring to the
senior pastor. Yes. Yes, sir.
Does that mean that the senior pastor should not carry also?
I don't have a problem if you carry, and quite frankly, you could. But here's the reality. In the event of a critical incident or unusual occurrence, your job is probably going to be a higher level capacity. You're going to be directing traffic, telling people what to do, telling people that are not part of the security team what to do and where to go. They're going to be looking to you for instructions. And if you're the one guy in the room holding a gun, taking out the bad guy, they're not looking to you for instructions anymore. So you've got to, I'll use some law enforcement terms here. You got to put the operator hat off to the side for a minute, and you got to put the administrator commander hat on for a minute. And you've got to give instructions rather than engage. But no, I mean, it's fine if you carry. You're still covered under the immunity clause if you do. But who runs your security program and how they implement those plans on a daily basis and when an event occurs, that should not be you, because they need to go handle the problem while you coordinate everybody else. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. So pick a team leader and then pick a team. And I'm very careful to use that word, pick a team, select a team. Do not list in the bulletin or announce from the pulpit on Sunday morning, hey, we're starting a safety team, and anybody that likes to carry guns, we'd love you to be there. Because you can imagine who you're going to get.
Barney Fife.
Well, you're going to get somewhere between Barney Fife and Tackleberry. And it's not going to go as well as you think. You do not want every gun nut. No apologies to, no offense to the gun nuts. I'm one as well. You don't want every gun nut on your safety team. What you want on your safety team ultimately is somebody who is calm under pressure, somebody who is very observant of things around them, somebody who is good with people, who can talk, because 99% of the things that we encounter, you're going to talk your way out of. You're not going to use any type of force whatsoever. So you want somebody who's got that gift of gab, that can just talk to people really well. And number 4, able to follow instructions. You do not want somebody who is a former SEAL team member who's going to think outside the box in order to conquer Afghanistan in the middle of the church service. That's not what you need. In fact, you are better off with a safety team that is unarmed, because they don't really care for guns, and they can talk to people well and just encourage people to do the right thing, or to take their disturbance outside, or help find that missing child, or handle this medical emergency that may be the case. You're much better off with the non-armed safety team than you are with everybody that's got a gun show up and we're going to solve this problem, because it's not going to go as well as you think. So step 1, find a leader and select that team. That leader, however, should not be you. If you have former LEO or current LEO, that would be great. Use them. Like I said, I'm the only one that doesn't carry a gun in my church, and I'm the only LEO, so it works out. But I got a former retired SAPD guy on who runs our safety team. He does an amazing job. He's got a great team that he has selected, and he's built a wonderful program. Secondly, create a very simple plan. It has to be in writing. I'm sorry, it's just the way that it is. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So you have to create a simple plan, but this does not mean you've got to sit down and rewrite your master's thesis on safety and security. A 2 or 3 page document is all it needs to be. Just spelling out how would we respond to some of the most common types of problems, and that you then train on that, the most common types of problems. And here's the thing. Robbie, a couple months ago, asked if you have a safety plan for your church, send it over to the BBA. He sent all those to me. I reviewed them. We've got some really good safety plans in the PVA already. Don't recreate the wheel. Just get with Robbie. He'll send you those documents, cut and paste and put your name on the top of it, and then go train on. I mean, this is not an issue of you having to create something that doesn't already exist. These exist. And at the end, I'm going to give you some websites that you can go to, and they have them for you as well. So this is not as complicated as it sounds, but train in those most common scenarios. Next, step 3, you got to have some way to communicate with that team. How did they communicate during the church shows? Our church, we use very simple radio communications. They have a little earpiece that goes in their ear, a couple $100, and we've got 6 of them. And that's the size of our church. We don't need more than 6 to run our whole security team. And it was like a couple $100. Very, very simple. And that's all you need. We're not talking, you don't need encrypted and you don't need, super high tech and free wire mics and all this kind of stuff. You literally just need something simple that the guys who are supposed to be on post that day are able to communicate with each other. That's it. When you put your safety plan together, avoid. I did read one, and I'm not going to call them out because I don't need to hear today. So sorry if I'm calling you out without doing it. But don't use police jargon in your safety plans. You're the only person that knows what that means. And quite frankly, you don't know what it means in the middle of a critical incident. We don't even use police jargon in the middle of a critical incident. All of critical incident training is talk normal. Talk normal. So what talk normal means, like, hey, we're missing a 3-year-old in the nursery and we need a couple of security roamers to come and help us find it. That's talking normal. What is not talking normal is we have a code magenta on East Buena 4 and we need, 3 Agent 7s to come by. Nobody has any idea what that means. So avoid all of the police jargon. Take out the 10 codes. We don't use any of that during critical incidents. And nor should your safety or security plan have that. Don't use code red, code blue, code teal, code whatever. Just simply say what it is so that everyone who's communicating with you knows what you're talking about. Okay? And then same with what your needs are. We need 2 people to come by and help. Number 4, biggest thing you can do if you do nothing else, enhance your access point control, your crowd flow. How do people get in and out of your building? Our church service is from 10 o'clock to 11:30 every single Sunday. My safety and security team is on the main door at 9:15. And so they're part of the greeting team as well. They greet everybody that comes in. At 10:01, all of our outside doors are locked. 10:01, every single exterior door, every single window is checked. Every single exterior door is locked. And the safety security team is now seated in the lobby. They can still hear the sermon. They can still pay attention to it. They just happen to be seated in the lobby. So if somebody comes up to the church and they're coming in late, they open the door and allow them in. But that keeps whatever might become a problem in the parking lot before it even gets in the building. If you do nothing else, do that. And you've already doubled your safety of your congregation by just simply locking all of your doors when the service is in place and have somebody paying attention to what's going on the outside. Then number 5, regularly train. Regularly train. I've said it enough, so I'll just leave it at that. But you got to regularly train. Training is not about being better than somebody else. It is about being better than you used to be. And that's really your goal. So your training is not about we have to be perfect and we have to run these our training protocols so frequently that we're perfect at it. That's not it. It's like right now, nobody even knows where to stand. So after training today, everybody knows where to stand. And that's it. Hey, we're better than we were yesterday. We've trained. Training is just simply about being better than you were the last time you got together. That's all the training is. And secondly, you probably can't read down here at the bottom. Training, you are never going to rise to the occasion. You are going to sink to your lowest level of training. I'll change that just a little bit and I'll say you're going to sink to your last level of training. In 31 years with the police department, I've had horrible training. I don't sink to that lowest level, but I do sink to my last level of training. So in a critical incident, I'm reverting back. My mind immediately reverts back to my last level of training. And that's why we have to train literally annually on critical incidents and active shooters and so on, because I'm going to revert back to what I last trained on. And your people will as well. You're not going to sink to your lowest level, but you will sink to your last level. So train frequently enough that they'll at least go back and be, oh, okay, what was I supposed to do? I remember now. So keep that in mind. Types of incidents. This looks like a lot. Blow through these really, really fast. But when we think about safety and security for the church, we think active shooter. That's what we've got to train for, right? No. These are your top 10 incidents in churches. Okay, these are in churches. Top 10 types of incidents that are going to occur in your church and by frequency. Number 1, medical emergencies. 50% of your safety security plan is going to be how to handle a medical emergency. Everything from a diabetic coma to a slip and fall to a heart attack and anywhere in between. Just think through how you would handle it. and then have a plan in place for that. Disruptive and distressed individuals. This is an individual that showed up for this intent or purpose. They want to stand up. They want to interrupt the service. And this is that person that doesn't know you're not supposed to stand up and speak while pastor's preaching on revelation or whatever the case may be. So in my church, I'll tell you how we handle it. You handle it how your policy dictates. A disruptive individual. Should the security team immediately go and remove them from the congregation? No, they shouldn't. If they stand up and they start speaking, especially if they're confronting me or asking me a question, then I will address it. Hopefully I can answer their question. If I give my security team, my safety team, this cue, once I've attempted to address the problem with them, once I've attempted to answer their question or tell them, you know what, right now is not a great time to talk about this, but I'd be happy to talk to you about it later. When I say, sir or ma'am, you're out of order, you need to sit back down and wait. If they choose to not do so, safety team knows now it's time to take action. So the safety team goes at my direction, not the other way around, when it comes to these types of individuals that might be slightly disruptive. Sir, ma'am, you're out of order. You need to sit down. And what I've done by saying you're out of order is I've actually also incorporated the disrupting a public service, which is in your handout here. It's one of the Texas laws that now gives your security safety team the authority to arrest. So because me telling them you are out of order, you need to sit down, has now accomplished that missing element. Third is parking lot issues. That's going to be about 10-15% of the time. That's anything from a traffic accident, a crash of two people bumping into each other to, a vehicle getting broken into. Domestic issues, these are common. Stuff is going on at home and it flows into the church. Maybe there's custody issues and mom dropped kid off at the nursery and then dad went and picked kid up and wasn't supposed to. Those types of issues. Child safety issues, similar to that, except this is more kind of the missing child. Dad dropped off the kid and mom didn't realize that she was supposed to pick kid up from the nursery. And so dad went home and so did mom. And now we've got a kid here that didn't have mom or dad pick him up because, you're like me. We have 7 kids. I don't know what day I was supposed to pick up who. So child safety issues, suspicious activities, just that. Somebody shows up with a trench coat on in the middle of the summer. That's suspicious. Does it mean it's a safety threat? No. But does it mean we should pay attention? Yes. Theft of property. We get pretty comfortable in our churches. We leave our purses. We leave our phones. We leave everything laying around. There's always that risk that somebody's going to walk by and take it. So how do you handle it? Physical altercations. People get into, a shoving match, pushing match, fight. How do you handle that? And what level of force is appropriate? Fire, other safety type security, that's number 9. Then finally, number 10, all the way down at the bottom, and a less than 1% chance is the active shooter. When we think safety security, that's the first one we go to, right? But it's really the least common. We should be planning and preparing for all these others first. Training considerations, 5 of them. Number 1, if you don't document it, it did not occur. The courts will not accept the dog ate my homework. So make sure that you are documenting. You increase or eliminate your immunity almost entirely on the back of your documentation. So if you document that you've trained, you're increasing your immunity. You have no training and no documentation whatsoever, you've really removed all of your immunity. Secondly, assign responsibilities. It's amazing how we go and we handle a critical incident and then nobody called 911 because it wasn't their job. So when you think through how we're going to handle those top 10 problems, whose responsibility is it to do what? So our safety security team, we also have a medical component involved in that. And we have several doctors and nurses that are part of our church. They know that if safety and security comes and gets them, they're now part of that and they know their responsibility. And for us, who calls 911? It's our soundboard because they're the ones who are not directly and personally involved in that critical incident or unusual occurrence. And they're the ones who have the ability to pick up the phone and call 911 to get either law enforcement or medical services en route to your location. Training. Yes, you should do training. And when you train with your actual equipment. With one exception, please don't train with your firearms. If you have medical equipment, which you should, And you can go all in on this. You can spend a lot of money, or you can just get some simple things like Band-Aids and Tylenol. But whatever medical equipment you get, train with it. Nothing's worse than showing a cellophane bag at the training and saying, here's our medical equipment. We store it in the cabinet. You can't touch it. Because then when you have a medical emergency, nobody knows what's in it or how to use it. So actually train with it. Now, if you get AEDs, you go all in and you buy some really nice stuff like some AEDs and things like that, which I highly recommend. Have at least one somewhere in your facility. Ask somebody to donate them. They're about $1,500 for a small one. You can go all the way up to $5,000 and more, but you can get a good one for $1,500. Don't practice with the actual AED. You're going to shock somebody out. But you can get test pads for this purpose so you know how the machine works and your security and safety team can function it as well when it becomes necessary. However, any type of weapons, all weapons, knives, tasers, firearms, they should remain in the vehicle and completely outside your training environment, because sure enough, somebody's going to be like, what are we going to do for an active shooter? We'll do this. And somebody's going to get hurt. You're going to get a hole in your wall. And that's not going to do anybody any good. So use this gun when you're doing your training. If you're doing active shooter drills, just use this gun and it'll work for you just fine. Train for legitimate, realistic scenarios. When we get together for our training, we do not plan for the nuclear holocaust. We plan for the slip and falls. We plan for the missing child. We plan for an evacuation. We plan for a fire emergency. We plan for every once in a while, okay, some suspicious guy comes in and he has a gun. What are we going to do? But the majority of our time, we're planning for what is realistic. Why? Because the courts are also going to look at, were you reasonable? Every time you got together, you literally planned for the zombie apocalypse. Then what did you do when this person had a heart attack and nobody knew what to do? Plan for the stuff that's going to happen more than the stuff that could in the very unlikely scenario. Make sure this is part of your training. Make sure it is part of your training, a reunification plan. I don't care how strong, how big, and how many your safety security team is. You will not prevent them from a mother getting to their child in the event of an emergency. So if you don't have incorporated into your safety plan a reunification plan for your child and their parent, then your safety plan just failed the moment it was needed. You have got to have one in place, and you have to communicate it frequently to your congregation. In the event of an evacuation, go to parking lot A. Your children will meet you there. Their staff is bringing them out there. They'll meet you there. Do not go to the children's one or whatever your plan is. That's just an example. You come up with your plan. Make sure that you know what it is and it's communicated regularly to everyone outside of, hey, we train. Make sure your parents know how to find their kids in the event of a safety or security issue, because they will no longer listen to you if they don't know what to do. That is the critical thing. All right. Write these websites down. I'm going to give you 3, and then we'll wrap it up. www.txdf.org. Texas Defense Force Security. They have tremendous articles about church civil liability, training resources, one of the best. Texas Defense Force Security, www.txdf.org.
Eric, are there sample safety plans?
Yes. All 3 of these websites have training resources, safety plans, what ifs, etc. The second one, txchurchsecurity.com. txchurchsecurity.com. This one has best practices. It's got a top 10 best practices. And so this, again, helps your liability issues. When you say, why did you do what you did? Well, Texas Church Security said these were the 10 best practices, so I did that. They're the experts. We're just trying to preach the gospel and keep our people safe. We're not trying to become a security company. We'll shift the blame to them. Okay? So TX Church Security. The last one, I think probably one of the best. www.gatekeepers.com. Gatekeepers.com. This is the National Organization of Church Security and Safety. It's located here in Texas. It is partnered with Texas DPS. They have training, they have resources, they have best practices. They will even come. I don't know if there's a fee attached to it, but they will even come to your church and help with that training. So gatekeepers.com. Last thought. Do not wait until your safety team has to dial 911 for that to be the first time you meet your local law enforcement. Have them out sooner than that. And there's countless ways you can do this. Invite them. They love. So it's true. Or tacos, or pastries, or anything that resembles sugar and easy carbs. Okay. So they're really easy to please. Invite them by some Sunday morning. And if all they want to do is pull in the parking lot and just monitor the parking lot, we're in Fair Oaks, relatively small community, about 7,000. And we have an officer that comes and sits in our parking lot from about 9 to 10 every Sunday morning. And you want to just have somebody walk that individual out a cup of coffee and a pastry. They'll be back next Sunday from 9 to 10 as well. It's almost guaranteed. So get to know them, invite them. When you have that training that you're now going to do and document, invite the law enforcement community to your church to just watch, to participate, to give their assessment of what your plan is and how well it is. But do not wait until literally I'm hitting 911 to meet that guy for the first time. Know where you plan on meeting them in the parking lot so you can direct them to the medical emergency or other issue that may be going on. Know how to communicate with them, which side of the building and such. Open up your facility. Here's a big one. Law enforcement is always looking for places to train. Open up your facility for that training. Every 2 years, the state of Texas requires every single TCOL commissioned law enforcement officer to participate in what is called alert training or active shooter training. And we have to have facilities to do that. Open up your church and allow them to do that training at your church. It will not destroy any of your facilities. It will not make a mess of your facilities. These are, in fact, the statewide, this is actually national and international. Maybe you didn't know this. Here in San Marcos is where Alert is located. And they now are the training leader for Alert active shooter internationally, everywhere, all over the world, right here from San Marcos. And they will bring very professional trainers to your location. They want to come here because if an incident occurs here, they've already trained and they already know how to handle it and handle it quickly and effectively and efficiently. So don't wait until that last minute that you're dialing 911 to then meet that person. Law Enforcement Appreciation Week every May. Invite them, have them come, show up in uniform, have an event where you give them an award or find out what the needs are of that police department. Take up a collection and you find out they need, this particular type of equipment. Take up a collection and offer that to them. Build that relationship with them ahead of time. And you're going to find them to be incredibly responsive. They'll be responsive either way, but you get my point. They're going to be incredibly responsive to what your needs may be. All right. I apologize. I did go longer than 7 minutes, but what questions do you have? Sir.
So what happens if a person asks the pastor a question and the pastor knows that it's hate speech, but that person says, no, it's free speech? How would we solve that problem?
Awesome. Thank you. All right. If you take your handout that I gave you.
So on the table, you have a list of federal and state statutes that apply to churches in these situations.
Yes. 42.5, disrupting a meeting or procession. And a person commits an offense if, with the intent to prevent or disrupt the lawful meeting, procession, or gathering, the person obstructs or interferes by physical action or verbal utterance. So you do not have to allow anyone to speak while you are preaching. No one. You can choose to if you want, but you don't have to. And the moment you say, sir or madam, you're out of order, you need to stop, they have now committed 4205, disrupting a public meeting place, and they can be arrested for it. Class B misdemeanor.
So the magic words are, you're out of order, you need to stop.
Right.
Their right to free speech does not trump that. Your right to conduct religious services trumps that right in your facility.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's others that may apply, like the federal law on the front, the FACE Act. That's actually a federal law where they could face a year in prison. and other things for the disruption as well.
Other questions, John?
So I've been told we're in the process of getting a team together and planning and all that good stuff. But I've been told in the past that if you were saying that if you've got a rules for anyone there, it's also a rule for your safety team, carry versus not carry, whatever. That and again, I'm probably wrong. Go figure. But that your security team or your safety team doesn't have to abide by those rules because it's private property. Is that only true if they're actually a security team that's the trained part versus a safety part?
Correct. If they are private security, if they're a licensed security company, then you've given them special permission.
Right.
But you cannot exempt. You cannot say, I like you, so you get to carry a gun. I don't like you, you can't carry a gun. You open it up to any unpaid individual, then you open it up to every unpaid individual.
So if outside it says no open carry, and anyone can legally carry concealed.
Correct. You post 30.07
07.
signs, and it says, I don't want anybody open carrying here. So only a uniformed law enforcement personnel would be exempt from that. Everyone else has to have it concealed.
Got it. Like,
Sir.
Going along that line, would you post a 30-5 sign to get just unlicensed carry and then require your safety team maybe to be LTC holders?
LTC no
Doesn't
longer
matter.
applies in the state of Texas. The only reason you would get an LTC is because you want a faster background check to buy a firearm, or you want the reciprocity with other states.
Also, I thought 30-5 stopped at unlicensed carry on a private property.
No, that's exempt now with the new laws 3006 and 3007 permitless carry.
Right.
Anyone can carry a firearm in Texas as long as they meet the eligibility requirements.
you said something about not shooting, and I think you meant in the building. Do you think it's really extremely necessary for teams to shoot together?
I think it is as beneficial as there's interest. I don't want to require any of my team that's really not a gun nut to go do that. But I also don't want them carrying a gun. If I have people on my team that like guns and want to go shoot, then I treat it as a fellowship event. I don't treat it as a safety security event.
Do you pay for it?
I haven't been asked to yet.
Well, the reason I ask is obviously our guys started what they want. Some people wanted to be paid. That's why we're not doing that. Then they want to, us to buy their ammo. So what we ended up with doing, and again, I don't know anything. What we ended up doing is saying on our team, you don't have to carry a weapon to be on the team.
Right.
But if you're going to carry a weapon, you have to be licensed because then we at least know you passed something that says you know how to shoot.
Sure. I think you're safe there by saying you personally, as your organization, wants LTCs, okay, licensed to carry holders, because for that reason they have passed some type of firearms qualification course at some point. The state of Texas doesn't require it, and Senate Bill 694 does not require it for that immunity to pass to you. I would caution purchasing anything outside of like your standard equipment, an AED, a CPR mask, bandages, that type of stuff. I would be very cautious with purchasing anything in the quote unquote safety arena, because now you are attaching liability to every dollar you spend.
That's funny you said it because I looked up the question you didn't know the answer to. No church has ever been found liable ever for shooting. However, the people who have supplied the background checks, the bullets, all of those folks have been sued.
True. Yeah.
So I'm guessing what you're saying, if you buy the bullets and somebody can say, hey, you provided the bullet that killed my grandma.
Sure.
So don't buy firearms, ammunition, weaponry, that kind of thing.
Unless you have the licensed security company.
Correct. Right.
Then you kind of are obligated.
Right.
What about during the week? I mean, we'd have more crazy people come by during the week than we do.
Sure. Yeah. And,
Just like in situations like this.
Right.
I mean, you have a group of pastors here, someone walk in that door. What if our liability is?
the courts are going to go back to reasonableness. Was it reasonable?
We don't have a security.
Right. Was it reasonable for you to be concerned that some a mentally handicapped person was going to bust in the middle of our skill builder session? Probably not. The courts are going to find that's not reasonable to assume that. So they're going to, and I can't speak for the courts, but you get my point. They're always going to look at the reasonableness of the circumstance. And I'll bring up just one other thing to you. Unless you're a really large church that just has deep pockets, you've got a budget that can handle it. It is not cost beneficial to start your own private security company. It is much more cost effective to hire off-duty LEO. You are only paying them for the hours that they're working. Their department is covering their liability insurance, their health insurance, all that other kind of stuff. They're absorbing all that risk, and you are simply absorbing their skill set by paying them that whatever dollar amount that you agree to for that uniformed or plainclothes officer. You will always fare better unless you just happen to be a mega church that can afford, a really large security presence and team and all the training that goes with it.
And with that LEO, you can still form your own volunteer safety team that works in conjunction with them.
Absolutely.
Well, like in the week, you got to be laying on the door, this, that, and the other. What's our liability as far as staff?
Shoot.
We all pretty much still hang on.
Yes. And so
Not breaking in here.
yeah.
So not twice.
Know what your legal defenses are under Chapter 9 of the Penal Code for handling that problem. Obviously, we definitely want to be a gospel-oriented organization that is opening our arms and communicating truth and helping people that are hurting and praying for those that are in need. Yes, 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 and yes. But at the same time, you have to keep yourself and your staff safe. So if you're a little bit concerned about this person, they're having a mental health episode, then it doesn't hurt to also have called the local law enforcement to show up and be on standby and wait there with you in the lobby or wait there in the sanctuary as you're, ministering or praying with this individual. Nothing is wrong with that scenario either.
Eric, would it be a good idea for churches during the week when the facilities are largely vacated, but there may be a few staff on hand to have like a locked door policy, a limited entry policy, and for that staff to do periodic training together on these kind of things, sort of as the on-site safety team during the week?
Yes, absolutely. We have a full-time daycare at our church as well, so we're open 6 a.m. to 6:30 round the clock, or 5 days a week plus the weekend for the services. We never have our doors unlocked except for 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings. The entire rest of the week, our doors are locked, not because we don't want to be accommodating or inviting. Anybody that comes to our door and knocks on it, we're going to go and greet them. But we want to know that they're there rather than chase it along to be prepared for that scenario.
John, one more question.
So we have a staff member. I'm trying to figure out how this works with paying folks, right? So if you don't want to pay anybody on your security team, and we don't, safety team. But if we have someone who serves, like we got a guy right now, Ty, who we pay him to open and shut the campus for us in the mornings. It's just a small, just a little bit of money.
Yeah.
But if he serves on that safety team, what does that do? I mean, if he's not paid for being on the safety team, but let's say he's a staff member, can he not serve on the safety team because of that? How does that work?
I haven't seen any case law on that. I don't think there's been any that have been brought up. What I would make a clear distinction on is he's being paid for facilities maintenance, and make that abundantly clear in any way, shape, and form that you can.
So can you literally put he's being paid for this and not as a safety member?
I wouldn't go that far because you're admitting you're aware of the conflict.
Yeah.
But at a minimum, making clear this is why you're being compensated.
Define his hours in that paid capacity and exactly what he's doing. Yeah.
Well, thankfully, the courts are always really reasonable. And
You're in Texas. You're in Texas.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, emphasize.
Nobody's more reasonable than
Texas.
Texas. Right. All right. Any other questions? Eric did a lot of work.
Yes, but it's voluntary because he's on safety.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We're not paying him, so we incur no liability if his advice goes awry. But we did feed him that. That may not have been reasonable. Yes, I don't know. Eric, thank you so much, brother, for taking your areas of expertise and sharing it with us today.
My pleasure. Really appreciate it.
All right. Let me pray for us and we'll dismiss. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for our brother and his blessing us today with his knowledge and expertise and his experience. Lord, help us to be wise and shrewd at the same time, and to be wise and take care of our congregations and our flocks, but to be very shrewd, very discerning about the things that we need to have prepared, things we need to have in place, scenarios we need to plan and train for. So, Lord, give us wisdom and help us to be diligent in this matter so that whatever might happen, and Lord, we pray it won't be anything, but whatever might happen, Lord, we will have done well by those over whom you've called us as shepherds. We pray that, Lord, in the name of Jesus. Take us back safely to our places of service now. Amen.